Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Sherrone Moore in Michigan, putting some really quality finishing touches on the 2026 cycle. We have two commitments to talk about on a Tuesday afternoon. Hand up. I'm a Michigan fan as well. There's a lot more on my mind regarding where this Michigan program sits than just a couple of commitments that we picked up on the recruiting trail. Now, we're going to talk about these commitments because, quite frankly, I like both of them. Want to talk about the offseason plan because when I look at Michigan's offseason going into 2026, it's year 3 under Sherrone Moore. We have not seen a college football playoff appearance. The the best way I would put it is it's not desperation, but I got to see some urgency. I got to see some urgency from Sherrone Moore. I got to see some urgency from this coaching staff, knowing damn well that, hey, the standard that Sherrone Moore took over was a team that's making the college football playoffs, a team that's competing for national championships. We have not seen that under Sherrone Moore the first 2 years. Year 3, you have to see it. What is that going to look like in the offseason? That's the conversation I want to get into. Before we do, I do want to say to the Michigan fans, thank you. It has, as frustrating as 2025 has been, it was for me a really fun team to talk about because it was young. You saw this team at certain areas really grow up, specifically on the offensive line. And I'll say this, buckle in because I do think you'll see Sherrone Moore get pretty damn aggressive in terms of building this roster in the transfer portal over the next couple of weeks and months. The baseline of young talent, it's there, but it needs some pieces. We got to supplement some pieces in the portal, and I would be stunned if you don't see some aggression from Sherrone Moore and this Michigan coaching staff. I think we'll have a lot to talk about. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get started here. Now, let's start with the two commitments. Number one, Adrian Hamilton. There is a lot to like here. This is not the flashiest commitment that's in Michigan's 2026 cycle. I look at Adrian Hamilton and say, number one, really good athlete. And I mean really good athlete. At 6'2.5", 290, he carries that weight really damn well. Gets out of his stance, can pull play side, can climb to the second level. Why is that so important? One of the biggest changes we saw with this Michigan offense was leaning into a more athletic offensive line. And what I mean by that is we were really good running outside zone. We were really good climbing to the second level. This was the most athletic Michigan offensive line we've seen in a really long time. It is very clear Michigan wants to run the football. If you want to run the football as much as Michigan does, you want to be able to do it in different ways. And I think the overall athleticism that this unit had this year allowed Michigan to be really dynamic running the football. And I think that's something Michigan wants to continue to lean into in the coming years. I mean, you have some position flex with Adrian Hamilton. He's not going to be a tackle. He does not have the frame to be a tackle, but I think he can be a really damn good guard. I think he can be a really damn good center. It's going to take a couple of years because I think he's got to fill out that lower half a little bit more. When he does that, think year 3, year 4, I would not be surprised if he's a multi-year starter for Michigan up front. Think a guy like Greg Crippen. Greg Crippen wasn't ready immediately. It took him till year 4 to get on the football field. Year 5, I thought Greg Crippen was really damn good for Michigan. I think Adrian Hamilton, similar developmental trajectory. Another comp I had, it was Jake Guinera. Jake Guinera is a little bit more ready to play than I think Adrian Hamilton is. Would not be surprised if Adrian Hamilton is a starter for Michigan up front, maybe not the first 2 years, but maybe year 3, year 4. The other name to monitor here, or to talk about, I should say, Jamarian Vincent. Michigan's been hot and cold with this kid throughout the process, and he's raw. Let's just start with that. He is 6'2", he's a $165, and look, he ain't any heavier than $165, right? We got to put some weight on Jamarian Vincent when he gets up to Michigan. Really gifted athlete. And I don't think he's ever going to be huge, right? He's a pretty narrow kid, would probably not get much heavier than 185, 190 pounds. The thing I like with Jamarian Vincent is although he's not technically a very good football player right now, and I mean like the technical part of being a defensive back, he's long, He's fast, but more importantly than that, he's really quick. Like he's a smooth, twitchy mover, which is kind of rare when you're talking about the 6'2" longer cornerbacks. This kid has the opportunity to be really good, but probably a little bit more of a developmental guy. You look at Michigan's class and say there are a couple of guys that we think can come in right away and provide value to Michigan. I think a couple of wide receivers can. Certainly think Savion Hyder can. Then you have a couple of other guys like Jamarian Vincent. Think about the David Ajabo mold, where we know they're not going to be year one, year two guys, but have the chance to be a really good year three, year four. Jamarian Vincent's that kind of guy. I like this take by Lamar Morgan. And quite frankly, Lamar Morgan has really leaned into these kind of athletic profiles. He wants size and he wants speed. Go look at Jaden Sanders. Go look at Elijah Dotson. Go look at Shamari Earls. Go look at Jamarian Vincent. These are the kind of guys Lamar Morgan wants in his cornerback room, and that's the kind of bodies he's going out and finding. I want to get into the offseason plan, and we'll talk a lot more about this over the next couple of weeks and really months. This is the best way to put it. Desperation, I should say, not desperation. There's got to be some urgency. And the biggest thing that I will say is that last year, Michigan made a really big move for Bryce Underwood. It excited a lot of us Michigan fans, but one of the things we said is, hey, we got to put the pieces around him. Michigan did not do that. It was very clear that Michigan needed wide receivers to come in. And you went out and got Donovan McCulley. You went out and got Anthony Simpson. Those are supplemental pieces. Those are not difference makers. You would like to see Michigan go out and potentially add some difference makers at wide receiver because you have one, Andrew Marsh. I'm just going to say this, man. This is an opportunity. And I know Michigan fans feel, excuse me, maybe a little bit different about this. Nick Marsh is a true wide receiver one ceiling in terms of the capability that this kid has. You land Nick Marsh in the portal and you have Andrew Marsh come back in year two. That is as good of a wide receiver duo, or at least as talented of a wide receiver duo that Michigan has in a very, very long time. You want to get the best out of Bryce Underwood? Do what Texas A&M did. We talked about it Sunday. What Texas A&M did is they had a quarterback in Marcel Reed who was not perfect, but we knew was talented enough to make it work. Instead of going out and trying to replace him, Texas A&M invested in him. And what I mean by that is, hey, we're going to invest in the talent that is around you as a quarterback. It worked wonders for Texas A&M. It's funny how not only Marcel Reed got better because he was a young quarterback that developed going into year three of his college football career, but at the same time, it's easy to take that step. It's easy to show development when you got better pieces around you. Texas A&M went out and got Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, and it fundamentally changed that offense. You're looking for Michigan to do a very similar thing. Here's the other position we got to talk about. We'll pull up the depth chart for this, and that is the defensive line. It was you saw this hole get really highlighted against Ohio State. Michigan got their tails whipped. They couldn't really stop the run in the second half, but more importantly, just couldn't impact the quarterback, right? I like some of the young talent on Michigan's defensive line, like Trey Pierce going into year four, Eno Edda going into year four, Nate Marshall going into year two, Carter Meadows coming in, Walker coming in, Titan Davis coming. Like there is some young talent on this defensive line. It immediately needs to get better in 2026. You have to fix that in the portal. And go back and look at last year, Michigan, when they had to replace Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, you landed Trey Williams and you landed DeMond Payne, two guys that are fifth-year seniors. The problem was with both of those additions is they were solid, like solid rotational players for Michigan on the defensive line, but they weren't difference makers. I don't need Michigan to go out and add 30 new players in the portal. Michigan does not need that. They need maybe 6 or 8. But if you're only going to land a few, make sure they are difference makers, guys that change the game for Michigan on both sides of the football. We didn't get that. Who was the one trail? Look at all the red that Michigan has on the defensive line. These are the guys that are leaving this Michigan program after 2025. need immediate guys to come in and make an impact. Donovan McCulley's are not going to cut it. Damon Payne's are not going to cut it. I would like to see Michigan does not need to be 20 guys. Even if it's 10, that's okay. As long as they are guys that can change the game for Michigan at a couple of positions. I mean, Michigan does not have a ton of holes in this roster because when you start looking at it, say, hey, got your young quarterback. The running back room is going to be awesome next year. Like whether Justice Haynes stays or not, Jordan Marshall, Savion Hyder coming in, that is really, really good running back room. Offensive line should be a top 5 unit in the country. I don't think that's a crazy statement to say with the guys that we return and guys that we get back from injury. Linebacker room should be fine with Jimmy Rolder, Cole Sullivan, Troy Bowles. Secondary should be pretty damn good. You got 2 positions that you need to address. You can't just do it with okay players. You got to go find some difference makers. If you do that, this Michigan team can take a jump, especially if Bryce Underwood takes that jump. You got to go out and make that happen if you're Sherrone Moore. The year 3, I would think Sherrone Moore feels the heat, especially with how that football game looked against Ohio State, where Michigan just clearly was not on the same level. We'll see how it plays out. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.